Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to continue on part 2 of the story I covered earlier about the nutcase F and his sister who this guy put in her place finally after all these years during the holidays, and the chaos that has ensued. And as you all recall, I'm doing this story to show you guys what happens when one is passive, allows people to pull BS, particularly family, and how you have to stand your ground, stand up for yourself, and stand up to them. And you can't tolerate any BS in your life. Otherwise, this is the stuff that will continue going on, causing turmoil and wreaking havoc in your lives, and you simply cannot have that. So we're picking up where things left off with his a-hole sister. He says, round 2. Once I came back into the house, it was round 2. A peace attempt by my mother was made when she asked me and my sister to shake hands and call a truce. If it was me, I'd be like, all right, here's the boxing gloves. You can go in the backyard and duke it out. And I don't care if she's a girl. I knew immediately it was going to fail. My sister, Noreen, was still clearly pissed off, particularly said, "You owe me a huge apology." Suck on this, sweetheart. During any other time, as I've done in my years past, I would have apologized just to appease my sister and bring back peace and tranquility. Smack! You jackass, or at least the past you was a jackass. That's why she behaves the way she does. She knows she can get away with it. She's on a power trip. No wonder she's single, no husband, no boyfriend, not even a guy looking at her, let alone any kids. Who wants to be involved with someone like this? Not this time. I calmly responded, I have nothing to apologize for. Good for you. We had a few words, and I began walking back to where my belongings were in my guest bedroom. My sister followed and said something along the lines of, "Oh no, you can't walk away if you're going to start talking." She has to have the last word, of course. She did this once before to Roger. I turned right around and walked up to her and began making a point, to which she immediately turned around and walked away with her fingers in her ears. She had to have the last word. Remember, guys, silence drives women crazy. But when you engage with them, now this guy, rightfully so, stood up in the beginning, and at that point then, she just ignored her. That makes them crazy. They want the fight. You can't back down, but once you say your piece, you leave. But again, who's the smartest guy in this whole story? Roger the brother, who's not being around this shit. Sees the parent, sees you, walks away, has nothing to do with the sister. You cut assholes out of your life, even if it's family. Things were clearly still heated, and I knew, given how fired up she was a couple hours earlier, she was not going to let up anytime soon. A few moments later, I was in my guest bedroom. My sister walked by and made another comment in my direction. She's in her fucking 40s, and she's behaving like a fucking 16-year-old girl. I responded by saying, "If you come at me with an attitude," and I was unable to finish my sentence when my sister immediately came up to me and began screaming at me at the doorway about how cruel I was to her. See, you engaged her, and you gave her what she wanted. At that moment, I said to her, "Get out of here," and slammed the door to shut in Noreen's face. She pounded the door a couple of times, but by then walked away. Our family has had heated blow-ups, but nothing of this magnitude that I could remember from recent memory. Honestly, you should have left. Mom and Dad, I love you. Merry Christmas, and I'm not going to be around this bullshit. Now people can say, why she should leave. Well, your parents are going to kick her out. The worst part of all this was that the day was only a little more than halfway over, and there was another day to go with everyone together. Standing up for yourself, good, but you could have handled this a whole different way, my man. I get you're back to childhood dynamics and all that stuff, but should have walked. Having read and listened to a number of stories of enraged women being completely unhinged and even dangerous, I was truthfully not sure where this was going to go, what Noreen's limits were, and what she was willing to resort to. Plus, I was already feeling the burn out of 2 fights, and I thought that removing myself from the situation would significantly de-escalate the massive amount of tension present in the household. I began to pack my bags, texted my brother, Roger, who was 20 minutes away, and asked to crash with him for the night. I would have just left permanently. Mom and Dad, I love you. We can get together, but I'm not having anything to do with this BIT. He was surprised by how bad things have gotten and said he was willing to put me up if needed, but suggested I tried mending the situation a bit further. Noreen, in the meantime, took my folks' car out to get away for a bit, and things calmed down. You're letting this mental case get in a car and go for a drive and their car out? Oh my God. I then had the house to myself with folks and went to the kitchen as my folks were preparing dinner. As food was getting ready and our dining room was being prepared, I really did not enjoy the next conversation I was about to have with my folks, as they had already been through enough. I told them that either Noreen needed to go or I needed to go. There you go. My folks were clearly disgusted and said I had expressed such a sentiment. We talked for a few minutes again on how to remedy the situation, and eventually I became agitated and expressed to them that every goddamn time she throws a fit, if she doesn't get her way, every goddamn time. Right. And I'm sure your mother didn't like you using the name of the Lord in vain, but regardless, you made your point. Yeah. Your parents have a major fault in this whole thing. Still, seeing how much effort my parents went enough to prepare dinner and decorations for arrival, and knowing how much of me packing up and leaving would hurt my parents, I told them I'd stay provided we didn't have another blow-up. I promised my parents I would not look to start shit, although I warned that I would not tolerate and I would not respect Noreen if she acted like a spoiled child, and we would likely have the same outcome as what happened the day before. Fair enough. Okay, Mom and Dad, I love you. I will stay, and I'm not going to provoke anything, but I sure as I'm not going to take any crap. Your parents need to freaking put her in her place, but they're not doing that. I would say this to Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad, we're all grown-ass adults here, except Noreen. And I love you, and I'm here for you, but I'm not going to be here anymore if she's going to act this way. And you also need to do your part in putting her in her place. You could either have Roger and I here, and we have a nice, relaxing family time together, or you can just have her in drama and turmoil. What do you want? When you get older, you become the parent, as many of you guys in your 40s are well aware. My parents understood, and they tried to assure me that there wouldn't be any more blow-ups, even though I had my doubts. I then messaged my bro that I would stay, and I began to unpack my bags. Somewhere along the way, Roger messaged back in jest and said maybe making Noreen a knife for Christmas wasn't the smartest idea. I wouldn't give her any sharp object. The eerie calm before round 3. While Noreen was out of the house, and after I squared things with my parents by staying at the house, I took a quick shower from my workout and helped my folks finish setting up dinner. My sister then arrived back home, and my parents agreed that my sister could retreat to our living room with her dinner to separate the two of us. No, we're not going to separate. She's just going to act like a fucking adult. Not the separation. We're not back in elementary school here. I wasn't going to care if she dined with us or if we were separated either way. After the four of us said grace together at the table, our folks made another plea for us to come to a truce, and my sister then excused herself to the living room while I had dinner with my folks. What a child. The tension in the air was very palpable, but after a few minutes of awkward silence at the dinner table, my folks and I made the usual enjoyable family small talk that we always do. And it was actually a nice time together. My sister watched TV with her dinner while still trying to overcome the effects of her cold and trying to process our previous spats of the day. Yeah, she's probably sitting there watching Rachel Maddow or something like that. Later that evening, all was joined in the living room, where my sister was trying hard to avoid eye contact with me, and I was trying my hardest not to create any more agitation. In our house, we had made it a family tradition to open gifts Christmas Eve as opposed to Christmas Day. Noreen was clearly upset and not in the mood after opening a few presents. Noreen excused herself early to go to bed. She made one small comment pleading me to understand how hurt she was before retreating to our guest bedroom, because she knows that's going to set you off. She's doing that on purpose. It's not about how she feels. She just wants to stir you up. Our folks and I then had another conversation and dissecting everything that had transpired up to that point. Dad admitted he was seeing these behavioral patterns of Noreen causing drama and tension, but again, rather than trying to squash it, he was passive. Smack to your dad. That's the reason there's this problem. Can't be this way. He admitted whenever Noreen would act up in a conversation with him, he would only try to change the subject of conversation to appease Noreen, rather than attack the problem. Like that evening, seeing that it was Christmas Eve and I wanted to separate myself from the turmoil of the house, I went to Christmas Vigil Catholic Mass and prayed and asked the Lord's help that I do the right thing. My actions that day never came from a place of looking to intentionally hurt Noreen or cause distress. It came from a place that Noreen's attitude and behavior were destructive, they were not positive traits for her, and they would not be enabled. When I returned home, I actually felt some peace after the events of that day. Well, Christmas Eve services will do that. Yeah, you weren't looking to create a bunch of drama, but you weren't going to tolerate any crap either. And there's nothing wrong with that. As I went to bed again, I didn't know how things were going to transpire. Maybe it was paranoia, but I placed a chair against my locked door. In an extremely unlikely case, Noreen decided to attack me in my sleep. Well, maybe Santa Claus will bring her and put coal in her stocking. Or actually a pile of crap in her stocking. The next morning on Christmas Day, the tension in our household remained, as Noreen and I still largely refrained from interacting with each other as everyone got up and made breakfast. I decided to go for a walk around the neighborhood while my folks and Noreen went out for Christmas Day Mass. I at least had some quiet time for myself. When Noreen returned with my folks from church, she seemed in more of an upbeat mood. It seemed as everyone was ready to move on past the events of yesterday, but then came round 3. So, going to Mass calmed her down for a whopping 5 minutes. In round 3, while gathering in the kitchen and feasting on leftovers from yesterday's wonderful Christmas dinner at our parents' urging, Noreen and I made our first attempts to talk about what happened the day before. No, I wouldn't say anything. I'd talk to your parents, let her exist there, and then you leave the next day. Because good luck with this. I started by telling Noreen I took absolutely no pleasure in causing her distress, and I'd be happy to discuss the incident further. So, you're trying to behave like an adult with a person who behaves like a child. It's not going to work. You're trying to take the higher road where she's not going to do that. In all sincerity, I wasn't at all looking to cause her any kind of pain or distress. I was merely not enabling what I thought was bad behavior. I get that, and it was bad behavior. Noreen and I began to discuss the events in chronological order, and we were largely in agreement of the sequence of events that had transpired. But then I asked why she became upset when I initially denied her request of emotional support. She pleaded that she needed my help following her argument with my mother. My mother, who was frustrated arguing with her at the time, made a comment along the lines of, "I don't care if I die tomorrow." I wasn't sure what the context was, but knowing my mom, it would have been utterly ridiculous to interrupt those words to mean I don't want to live anymore by any of her kids or her husband. I wasn't positive that was what Noreen was thinking, but Mom was working in the kitchen and was not in the mood for my sister to come on strong in a political debate. My sister incidentally later apologized to my mother for that argument. Gee, your effing sister who spent a lot of years living in California universities, debating with Mom on Christmas Eve about politics. Whoever would have thought that would have happened? So as I suspected, the argument between Mom and Noreen was over something petty and they needed to talk it out, which is what I told my sister that triggered the entire upheaval between us. Regardless of that, the way she behaves, she's a fucking psycho and a child. I then explained to Noreen that I made myself clear to her multiple times and she was not entitled to my time. Noreen's response was, "I never said I was entitled to it." Over the next couple of minutes, I repeated myself and tried to make it clear to Noreen multiple times. The way she came off was of an attitude where she thought she was entitled for me to immediately respond to her impulses. So everything you're saying is going in one ear out the other. You know why? Because everything you're saying, you're using words like entitled and all that, which is warranted, I might add. But she's not going to hear your logic. She's only going to hear you're labeling me entitled. You're labeling me narcissistic. And her emotions, which is she runs by her emotions, is going to go fucking haywire. You're speaking the language of logic, and she's speaking the language of emotion, and those languages don't speak. It's like blah, 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 blah. Noreen again defended her actions, saying that she never had actually said she was entitled, and so I shouldn't have come off thinking that way. Please. I told Noreen about her continuing to pester me after I myself made it clear she needed to work on the issue of our mother was disrespectful. She was honestly stunned. She did not think that her requesting, and then demanding my time after I denied her initial request was the slightest bit disrespectful. Well, of course, she's not the bad guy. Everybody else is the bad guy. Then Noreen explained to me her perception of the events as they were unfolding. I was seriously taken aback by her thought process. According to Noreen, the fact that I denied what she perceived to be help, she found that to be disrespectful to her. Moreover, she thought that my denial of help was, in her words, I think, a form of sexism used by the patriarchy. I was waiting for the P word to come into play. Of course, you're being sexist. Because when it comes to a modern day effeminist, particularly one from California, I went to California universities, and yes, I'm shitting on California because there's plenty of shit in the streets of San Francisco and other places in California, I might mention. But they like to clean up all the crap off the streets for the president from China. Remember that. But anyhow, yeah, of course she's using the words sexism and patriarchy and stuff to rub it in. I'm in that kind of mood this morning, guys. I then spent the next few minutes telling Noreen that I thought she was a very smart and talented young lady, which she generally is, but judging by her statement about the patriarchy and other comments she made in the past, I also believe modern feminism had corrupted her judgment. Uh-oh, here we go. The hydrogen bomb. Noreen skillfully disputed the aspect through my lingering concerns on some of her previously expressed sentiments remained unchanged. Then our conversation took another curveball. Noreen claimed she knew that I was on the spectrum, and I needed to get help and do an introspection of myself. Noreen is telling you need to get professional help. Really? She's telling you this? If there's anybody who needs professional help and a lockdown in a mental hospital and on medication, it's her. She further was convinced she knew herself better than I knew myself. At that point, I just began laughing in her face. I suspected that Noreen got this idea from my mom. Some years ago, Mom told me she suspected I had a mild case of Asperger's. I was already well into my adult years, and we had this conversation. She's trying to get a rise out of you again, man, and it is working. She's manipulating you into a fight and drama which she wants. I, at that stage of my life, never cared for whether it was not if it was not true or not. I never investigated it. I never took it to heart. By that time in my life, I only looked at outcomes and results of my interactions with others. If something was off, my attitude was simply that it was my responsibility to adapt and adjust and adapt. If it is true that I have Asperger's, I was an awkward kid growing up. I made a number of social blunders in high school and college, and I had almost zero success in dating during that time in my life. I remember how annoyed many people were with emotional meltdowns similar to what my sister was putting on. Fast forward to this past decade when I had two girlfriends, one of whom later became my fiance for a time. I worked full-time as a university professor for over 6 years, and I successfully transitioned into a different career field while moving forward. Most recently, I began exploring side hustles. I quit drinking alcohol entirely, changed my diet, and began weightlifting 5 days a week. Bro, that's wonderful. Good for you. That's going to add years to your life and enjoyment and peace. Now you need to have nothing to do with your fucking sister to add more peace to your life. Aside from recently watching the comedy skit of Bob Barker's fight with Adam Sandler in the hospital, autism was the furthest thing from my mind. Noreen truly had no idea how to touch her statement was. Then our conversation concluded with Noreen expressing that she thought I was a bully and imposing my will on her. The patriarchy. I asked her point blank, why is that when I, Roger, and our folks get together, we don't have these kind of we have these kind of blow-ups? Why when we get together, we don't have these kind of blow-ups? I observed that Noreen almost always was in the middle of these blow-ups whenever we finally had family get-togethers. Noreen's response was simply that I was projecting and I was hurting her feelings. So you're laying out facts, and she can't counter those facts with an actual argument like, yeah, I am the reason there's all these fights and drama. So now she's going to insult you. That's how it works. It was an ugly fact that Noreen was almost always in the middle of these family blow-ups, and I wanted to fix whatever was causing this, but she rejected my assertion. Of course, because you're the problem, not her. That's how narcissists operate. So she is a fucking narcissist. We all know this. She's always in between the fight. If it's just you, your mom and dad, and your brother, everything's cool. But she starts all the bullshit, and she can't admit it. You might as well beat your head with a sledgehammer because you're not going to get anything done with her for her to get this. Noreen honestly thought I crossed the line with her and that she would not stand for my behavior if I conducted myself again as I did the other day. Noreen stated that if I were to respond as I did, she would not be able to trust me or have a sibling relationship with me. You don't have a relationship. All you do is fight. I responded by saying Noreen that she came to me and disrespected me again as she did that day. I would not care if she chose to have a relationship with me or not. Noreen angrily said a few cuss words and removed herself from the kitchen. Well, I know what I'm going to say at the end of this video about Noreen and your relationship with her, but I'll finish the story. And by the way, guys, for you guys that are still watching this and that had that family members disturb drama and bullshit, does this sound anything like that? And may give you good reason to nip in the bud or have nothing to do with these people? Noreen retreated to the living room, and again, my folks tried to talk it out with her while I retreated to the guest bedroom. This is Christmas Day, I might add, guys, for goodness sake. My mother came out a few minutes later and observed that Noreen took issue with me being so cold in my conversation with her. I pointed out I was merely being stoic and focused on the problem as best as possible. You were trying to resolve a problem and talk rational to an emotional person that doesn't understand rational. It's not going to work, and she wants to fight and argue. There's no point anymore with her. My mother further asked what it was I said, what it was when I was with my girlfriends. I would offer to help them in times of need, but I would not do so for my own sister. Oh, for God's sakes, your parents are a problem. I'm sorry, dude, with it. Well, I'm not sorry. They're a problem with her. My response was, one, that I would always be willing to help if there was a legitimate need or there was a legitimate serious issue in hand. He says, if my mother was truly thinking about ending her own life next day, naturally I would have intervened. Two, I furthermore added that my girlfriends never behave the way Noreen does. Exactly. My mom, in a seemingly desperate attempt, went back to the living room to talk to Noreen. When I next saw my mom, she was clearly ground down and had the look of defeat in her face. I apologized to her as I never wanted this, not for her, not for Dad or Noreen. That evening, we were scheduled to go out to a restaurant for Christmas dinner. Initially, my mother had reserved a table for 4. She contacted the restaurant and asked if they revised the reservation to 2 tables with 2 persons each, preferably in separate locations, as they say, you can't make this shit up. Oh my God. No, I have a better idea. Mom and Dad, you and I will go out to dinner. Noreen can stay here or leave. Not 2 freaking tables, the kids' table and the adults' table. Are you kidding me? They said you can't make this shit up. He says, in conclusion, a sliver of hope. For the next hour or so that Christmas afternoon, as we waited until dinner time, the tension in the house actually felt like it was beginning to wane. Although Noreen and I still continued to avoid each other just to play it safe. At some point before we left for dinner in 2 separate vehicles, I again expressed to Noreen that I was never trying to cause her distress or emotional pain. Smack! Stop talking to her. That ship has sailed. Every time you try to be the better man here and take the higher road trying to explain to her, she twists it around, turns into a bunch of fucking drama. It's done. Stop wasting. I'm glad you stood up to her. I'm glad you're not taking her crap. But stop giving her attention. Stop feeding the beast. Okay? Now, at the end, I'm going to say what I really have to say here. Having uttered this sentiment a few times now, I think Noreen was feeling some assurances from me, fuck her, that I was never out to get her and felt the tension dying down between us. So on the drive to the restaurant, Dad went with Noreen and I separately with my mom. This is ridiculous. When we arrived at the restaurant and examined the table layout, seeing that the tension seemed to be finally dying down, I focused and requested the restaurant staff that we all sit together at one table. The dinner went well, we all drove back, and at this time we felt festive enough to finish opening Christmas presents. Noreen gift wrapped some presents for me, as I did for her, and we each warmly unwrapped them and then thanked each other. My sister finally opened Roger's gift wrapped knife. Had she opened it the night before, I would have been nervous. I would not give a sharp object to this woman. Then my mother wanted us to take a family selfie. The 4 of us squeezed in together. My mother motioned me to get next to my sister. And then my mother told my sister she should hold up her new knife that Roger and our family pose. Okay. Is this the Manson family photo here? Needless to say, I was a little nervous and already slightly amused, as the rest of the family had no idea that Roger and I had discussed the issue of Noreen receiving her knife with some genuine concern the day before. I have a question about this knife. Is this like a nice chef's knife because you all enjoy cooking, or a knife set, or you just got a fucking buck knife for reasons why I don't know why she has a buck knife with the insignia in there? I want to know what the hell this is. I'm assuming it's just a chef's knife for cooking. Anyway. Our parents then put on the classic film Some Like It Hot to wind down the Christmas evening, and we all finally were able to turn in that night with a sense of ease. The next morning, on December 26th, I was going to grab breakfast, pack my bags, and then head to my place, which was a 4-hour drive. Noreen and I were the first up, and we both made ourselves breakfast, and we both greeted each other warmly as we did when she first arrived. I told her one more time I took no pleasure in causing her distress, and that's not what I was trying to do. Smack! I told you to stop bringing it up. Now you're going to get her more talking again and more bullshit. Some behaviors, I think, are destructive for you and for me. I said to her, and Noreen then replied, so this was kind of a tough love situation. It seemed like she was finally beginning to understand where I was coming from. No. I never once actually apologized for my actions. I maintain this to this day. I was simply not enabling what I thought was inappropriate behavior. But judging how things finished between Noreen and myself, this time it appeared I did not need I did not need to in the end. I then finished my breakfast, packed my bags, wished my family well, and embarked on the drive home. Holy fucking shit. Looking back on this whole ordeal, a positive takeaway was that it caused myself, Noreen, my mother and father, to conduct a serious introspection, and it forced us all to have some uncomfortable discussions we had otherwise been sweeping under the rug for years. As I noted early in this story, the whole blow-up was the result of issues that were bubbling under the surface for some time. And I decided it was time to rip the Band-Aid off and try to attack the problem head on. I wasn't sure how the outcome would look like or how bad things would end up, but it was a risk I decided needed to be taken. Did I contribute to this whole ordeal? Absolutely. Would I have handled some of the situations differently? In hindsight, yes. When Noreen initially began acting up, the better option to have taken probably would have been to tell her that she's going to act up and not respect my response to her. I'm going to remove myself and not speak to her until she calms down. Yes. So maybe I could have conveyed my point in a different manner without causing much distress as I did for my folks and my sister, which I'm not sure everyone would have gotten the message that I wanted these incidents with Noreen to stop. Although I wish I could have gotten my point across without having the outcome that I did. There was no way after all these years of people appeasing her and letting her shit slide was it going to turn out any other way than her exploding like Mount Vesuvius. Despite all the turmoil, to this day I genuinely care about Noreen. I wouldn't. After hearing many stories of women becoming unhinged and having my experience with Noreen this past Christmas, I feel a true sense of sadness and anger that so many gals with so much potential and much to offer are being corrupted by today's contemptible garbage movements in the modern West. As I said before my story, it is my sincere hope that my sis, in the end, doesn't ultimately become a natural casualty of modern day feminism. She already is, my man. It is something I pray about daily. I acknowledge not everyone shares my beliefs on the topic of prayer, and that's okay. It is my hope that Noreen and I now better understand each other, even though Roger still is not interested in reconnecting with her. On with Roger. It is also my hope that there won't be a part 2 to this saga. Mine too. Your story is fucking long. My parents, as I've noticed earlier, will be celebrating their 50th anniversary in this coming fall, 2024, and they will likely ask the kids to get together, so we shall see what happens then. Thank you again, SSM, for all your work, keeping everyone abreast of all the crazy goings on in modern Western society, and best wishes to your new Florida home. To all my brothers out there, stay strong. Well, bro, that was a hell of a story. Now I'm going to talk. So, again, we can all learn from this story here. What happens when you appease a bully, appease an a-hole, and let things slide because you don't want to rock the boat? This stuff just continues on. And it's never more of a complicated situation than family. And everybody has that family member that's an a-hole. And the family dynamics come back. Usually your childhood dynamics come back. And you don't want to rock the boat and start fights and everything. But you know what? You can't tolerate any bullshit. And it's good you stood up for yourself. However, I wouldn't have let it continue on the way it had and spoke to her in a way that you're going to cut this bullshit out. Either you're leaving or I'm leaving. And your parents really been fucking up for years because they're appeasing her, you know, and they're letting her get away with her crap. Your dad's passive attitude was a bitch-ass way to raise kids, and even though he's in his 80s and I respect elders, still, he handled it wrong and still is handling it wrong. But your parents in their 80s, and they know the clock is ticking. So they want to spend time with family, and they shouldn't have this type of stuff going on in their house. But your sister is such a fucking asshole. She doesn't care. You made it clear. When you and your bro get together and your parents get together, no problems. She's always in the middle of it, but she can't accept that. She's an asshole. So my opinion, bro, I get that because of your religious faith. You pray for her. You care for her, even though she's a fucking asshole. I have nothing to do with her. I make it clear. We are not going to have a relationship if you're going to behave in this way. Period. We're not going to argue. We're not going to fight. I'm not going to be around. So either when we get together, you're going to zip it and be respectful for me. If not for me, for our parents who aren't going to be here much longer, or we're not going to have a relationship. Period. And either one or two things are going to happen. Either when you get together as a family, she'll shut the fuck up and zip it for that time period and be respectful and kind, or she's going to start a bunch of drama and you aren't going to be around her. Period. I have no tolerance for fucking bullshit. So that's what I think how you should handle things going on, based on what you told me. Frankly, after a lifetime of her behaving this way, I'd have nothing to do with her. Even for your parents. I say, Mom and Dad, I love you, but I can't have anything to do with her. She's a piece of fucking garbage, and you know I'm right. I'll see you, Roger will see you, but I'm not seeing with Noreen. She can drop dead as far as I'm concerned. That's what I would do, who I am. But that's not you. So I think you really need to have, you're going to obviously see each other in 2024, later this year for the anniversary, and you can either say something in advance, or you can just see how things play out. I'm hoping that there's some miracle, and she realizes, maybe I don't want to fuck with him anymore starting his shit because he, obviously stopped putting up with my crap. Who knows? But after a lifetime of her getting her way and behaving like that, the odds are she's not going to change. We shall see. So anyhow, guys, that's a long one, a two-parter here, and I appreciate you sticking for this, but that'd be important to go over, given that it was the holidays. It's now New Year's Day, and a Happy New Year to all you guys out there around the world, by the way. And who in this time period you're dealing with family, and you got to remember these things. You got to stand up for yourself. And for you parents out there, because I got parents watching me, you can't let this shit go on your family. And if you have children, adult children coming there and they're acting like fucking kids, you as the parents need to set the standard, and you need to set the stage that this shit isn't going to happen. Because just trying to appease and behave like that, or sweep it under the rug and not want to rock the boat, you're just going to enable bad behavior. So hopefully something good will come from this. Anyhow, bro, I appreciate your story here, and it was a good thing to learn from. And I don't blame you. I'm glad you finally stood up to your a-hole sister. But there are things you could have done different, and I know you know this. So hopefully things go well for you, and you enjoy your single life and take it from there. So Happy New Year to you. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below and what you think about this. And guys, you got a story you'd like to share, whether it's short or long, email me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Just, of course, give me time to get to it. I can't get to them all, but I try my best. And if I don't get to them right away, I will in time. Or eventually, they will be going on the website. I've been mentioning the website for like 6 months now, but due to my move down to Florida and all the things with getting myself established down here, I didn't want to do it half-assed. So the website will be launched at the end of the first quarter, probably early to late March, and it's going to be good. And a lot of stories that unfortunately can't make it on this channel because I get so many, with the permission, of course, will go on the website that you guys can read these great stories and all that. And of course, I'll check with people ahead of time, and it's something you guys are really going to enjoy. Something also, because I know a lot of guys, you like to hear stories, but you also like to read things too. So it gives you another option to see more and more material, because I can only film so many videos in a day. It's just, it's only so much I can do. Otherwise, I'm never going to be able to speak, and I'm already losing my fucking voice here. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.